Another day, another case being heard in an Irish court concerning scum that are walking the streets of Ireland, savages brutally attacking Irish women, lying about who they are and where they came from, and coming up with pathetic excuses for their heinous acts. This latest case is nothing shocking. But then again, when you think about it in terms that this could be your wife, your daughter, your mother, that a savage like this encounters on the street, it's extremely sobering. The details of this are grim. Man jailed for sexual assault on woman on her own street, on her own road in South Dublin. 23-year-old man has been jailed for 3.5 years for a sexual attack on a woman as she walked home on the road where she lived in South Dublin. But it was more than that. He actually bit her. He bit her face like an animal, like a rabid dog. Let's see the details. As reported, 23-year-old man jailed for 3.5 years for a sexual attack on a woman as she walking to her place of residence in South Dublin. Saif Waleed Al Hindawi argued that he was intoxicated after his first time drinking, pointing out that he was from a culture where alcohol is not used. He also said the woman hit him first. So he was simply reacting to this woman walking home at night in self-defense. He was protecting himself from her because she allegedly attacked him first, and he was intoxicated after his first time drinking. Al Hindawi of No Fixed Abode, here we go again, No Fixed Abode, was before Dublin Criminal Court on Monday, where he pleaded guilty to a sexual assault on the woman on May the 23rd last year on Churchtown Road. The court heard that he refused to be tested for infectious diseases after his arrest, which meant the woman had to wait a number of months to find out if she'd contracted anything from him after he bit her mouth. If this had been a dog, the dog would have been put down. The dog would have been put down. But of course, it wasn't a dog. It was a so-called man, a savage, Saif Waleed Al Hindawi, on the tour in Dublin, deviating from his cultural norms of not drinking, getting intoxicated, attacking this woman sexually, and biting her in the face, then refusing to take a test for infectious diseases, adding even more stress to this woman's traumatic attack. Garda Michelle Monzel told the court that Gardaí responded to a report of an assault on a female by a male that night on Churchtown Road. They arrived, and in the headlights, they saw a female passenger had blood on her face. The male driver pointed to the footpath. This was the woman's husband that she'd been able to contact on the phone, who came out to look for her as she was being brutally assaulted, from where a man approached with blood on his mouth over his teeth. This was Al Hindawi. The woman told Gardaí that she was on her way home that evening. She texted her husband as she got off the Lewis around 10:30 p.m. and began the 7-minute walk to her house. Imagining it's a short walk, I'm close to home, I'm just going to walk like I used to be able to do back in the good old days, without too much worry of being sexually assaulted and having my face bitten. She glanced back and saw a man in a hoodie. He began walking on the road near her. Then he was right behind her. Terrifying altogether. Just picture this if you're that poor woman. And like I said, just imagine that was your mother, your wife, your daughter. It could have been. This was somebody's wife, somebody's daughter. She rang her husband to walk around and meet her, but as the phone was ringing, she came face to face with her attacker. He started shouting at her. He raised his hand. He shoved her to the ground with both hands and lay on top of her, pinning her arm down. Disgusting. She began screaming for help. She thought he was going to rape and kill her. He could have done if he hadn't been stopped. She said that all she could see was his massive teeth. As he put his face on top of hers, he started biting as his mouth was open over her mouth. What a disgusting, filthy, savage this excuse for a human is. She hit his head with her phone as hard as she could. Thank God. Her adrenaline kicked in. She was fighting for her life. As he yelped and shrieked, he said it felt as though he was trying to separate her legs to rape her. I can't even imagine this. She got a knee free and kicked him. He looked away and then ran. She was still on the phone to her husband as he arrived in his car. She got in and then they called the guards. The man came back to the car, even though she was in it with her husband, began banging on the passenger window and pulling the handle. Savage. The guards arrived and arrested the accused. He had no English, was interviewed twice through a translator and made admissions. No English, no speak English. He said that he was following directions on the phone, trying to get to the iPass centre from the Lewis. Also added that the woman had hit him first. He initially pretended to the guards, to Gardaí, that he had fled from Syria and he was in the country since March awaiting a work visa and was staying in a tent. He said he and his brother arrived at a port here having paid money to come from Syria. However, it transpired that he was actually from Jordan and he arrived via Belfast and had only been here for 5 days. Well, lying through his filthy, disgusting, blood-soaked teeth wasn't a problem for him, was it? Not something he had an issue with. He said it was his first time drinking. He was intoxicated after 5 beers. Where did he get the money for 5 beers? You know, having just arrived from Belfast 5 days earlier, no job, can't speak English. Where did he get the money for the beers? Didn't remember much. He became emotional, and as he denied anything untoward had happened, got emotional. Remember, he said he was just defending himself. The woman attacked him. The injured party entered the witness box to deliver a victim impact statement. This is the lady in question. She recalled being treated in hospital for bites to her face and mouth and receiving a tetanus shot like you would if a dog had bitten you. Surprised they didn't give her a rabies shot as well. She also said she needed x-rays for the injuries sustained when she was forcibly slammed to the ground, an MRI of her foot, which she used to kick her attacker in self-defense. Good for her. She kicked him that hard that she thought she might have broken her foot. That's how bad it is. She also explained she's still under the supervision of a doctor for PTSD, and that 2 weeks after the attack she had to be prescribed medication, which left her lethargic and unable to function. It's not just a case of the attack on the night, bad as it was. This woman's life's been wrecked. She'll always have the memory of the savage pinning himself on top of her, biting at her face, stinking of booze. She had to take 12 weeks off work following the attack when her career was on an upward trajectory. I'm sure it was. I'm sure she did need time off. I'm sure she didn't want to go out and face people, face bruised, bite marks in her face, waiting for results for tests whether you had infectious diseases. She was working towards a promotion. However, now she said she has lost her spark and is operating in survival mode. Thank the Irish government. Thank the Irish government. Over the last 9 months, I have constant flashbacks, she said. I'm no longer the confident woman I was. I'm a shadow of my former self, and I live in fear of being attacked. She's questioning whether or not she'll be safe anymore. She said she's a changed person, become short-tempered with family and friends. And since that date, when she's lying in bed, the last thing she thinks of is that savage. Don't call him a man, he's a savage, being on top of me. Can't get the image of his massive teeth out of my head as he bit into my face. Maybe should have those teeth removed. Won't be biting any more women again anytime soon. Maybe just a suggestion for any dentists out there. Make him wear a muzzle if he ever gets released or when he's in prison. She explained she hasn't slept one night without medication. She'd likely need it for the rest of her life. No doubt. How do you ever get over an ordeal like that? She doesn't feel safe. She took out a large mortgage to buy a house in Dublin suburb, which at the time had low levels of crime, a place we thought was healthy to raise our children, and then that happens. You know, you can't fault her for wanting to live somewhere where she perceived there to be a lower level of crime. But then this happens. And this is coming to every nook and cranny in Ireland. It's coming. People think they're safe in the suburbs. They think they're in a safe area. This could happen anytime, anywhere. She said she has a teenage daughter who's at the age where some freedom should be allowed to hang out with friends at the shops. However, the thoughts of her even walking to school are terrifying. Yes, this affects more than just this poor woman in question. She has a daughter. The women of my community no longer feel safe to walk our streets alone, she said. So obviously, she's not alone in her thinking. She said the attack wasn't random, but it was premeditated and calculated. The man lay in wait until he found a suitable victim. He knew where to strike. She spoke about the risk of being infected by a disease due to being bitten and explained that her attacker had refused to be tested. He wouldn't even give me this comfort, she said, explaining she then had to go through the long testing process and wait 3 months until she got the all clear. So it stretched out for months after the ordeal itself. The savage wouldn't even do the decent thing and take a test to see had he got any infectious diseases. Defence counsel said that his client came from a culture where the use of alcohol was not prevalent, talking about alcohol, blaming this on alcohol. Have you ever been drunk in your life? You listening to me tonight? You ever had a drink before? You man, you've had a drink, had a few too many drinks, had 5 beers, felt the urge to go out and jump a random woman, bite her face? I think not. I would hope not. But it's not his culture. So, Defence counsel said he came from a different culture, said language difficulties would make prison time more difficult. Will cry me a river. Too bad. The defendant had applied for asylum 5 days before, but he couldn't imagine that he would be successful. Oh no, don't write it off. There's every chance he could be successful. Every chance. This is Ireland, remember? Treasure Island. Another option open to the judge, he said, was to suspend a portion of any sentence for a lengthy period on condition that he leave the country. Imagine that, making a deal with the judge, Judge Martin Nolan, no less. Almost bordering with this savage. Hey, if we let you out early, you can leave the country. You should be deported immediately. Immediately. That might give some comfort to the victim, he suggested. I don't believe so. I don't think she'll be comforted in the slightest, because there's thousands more like him, potentially lurking out there in the shadows. That might give the victim comfort, he suggested, like the defence counsel would have any idea. Martin Nolan said that he would probably be deported at the end of the prison sentence, but that was for the civil authorities to decide. And then he jailed him for 3.5 years. 3.5 years for a vicious, sexually motivated attack on a Dublin woman, making her way home and savagely biting her face, not disclosing any information or agreeing to cooperate with the authorities to at least give her some peace of mind following the savage attack. 3.5 years. 3.5 years. And if he behaves himself, if he's a good boy in prison, he could be out in less than 2. That's the crime and punishment in Ireland. Just another savage attack on another poor Dublin woman. How many more are we going to have to hear about? But remember, people, no one gets into Ireland unless they're vetted. They've been thoroughly checked out. Remember, that was the official statement. That's the government line. Unless, of course, you're a man fleeing via Belfast or coming into the country via Belfast and lying your teeth off about who you are and where you came from. It's different. I'm sure he just slipped through the net. Anyway, just keeping you updated on what's what. More to come, no doubt, sooner rather than later. I'm Rick Munn. No risk, no reward. Over and out.